Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here for the New Thought Dialogue. And we might have some people popping in as they connect, um, but we'll try and keep it to an hour or less. Doesn't have to go a whole hour. But today we've been exploring a variety of sort of faith-based approaches and self-help approaches, from meditation to today we are going to be getting into the Quakerism, and I'm not sure the correct terminology for that, but thank you, Quakers, for joining us and everyone else as well. Um, without further ado, I want to say thank you for being here and participating in this dialogue. There are really no rules other than listening is good. And it struck me that some of the principles in Quakerism are also appropriate for dialogue here. Silence is okay, and asking questions is okay. Um, don't have to fill the space with people talking like I'm doing right now. So I'm going to be quiet and just um, welcome Paul, and let's see who else is here. Please introduce yourselves, folks, and Allison and Paul, and we'll get started with some brief intros and take it from there, see where the dialogue goes. Thanks, everyone. Paul, or Allison, would you like to go first? You have to unmute
Go ahead,
yourself.
Paul. Go ahead.
There's the unmute. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm Paul Pratt, and I'm a member of the Red Cedar meeting of the Religious Society of Friends. That's our official name, but we like Quaker. Allison, or am I supposed to say anything more? Allison,
Yeah, I'll go ahead. My name is Allison Ellsworth, and also a member of Red Cedar Friends meeting. And yes, as Paul said, Religious Society of Friends is the official uh, category, so to speak. But we're called Quakers because of kind of the historical nickname or perhaps insult in some cases that the Religious Society of Friends was given. And Paul probably could explain more about that at some point. But that's my understanding that Quakers, we adopted the name and embraced it. So either way is fine. And we do refer to each other as friends with a capital F. Sometimes, obviously, we use each other's names too. But yes, and I've been part of Red Cedar Friends for, oh gosh, I think I just started coming in 2015, so coming on 11 years now. Hard to believe.
hey, I started almost 50 years ago, and I started at Red Cedar, went off to grad school, and got married under the care of the Ann Arbor Friends meeting. But our lives brought us back to Lansing and back to Red Cedar.
And you stuck around.
Yeah.
Uh, would you each like to give a sort of a brief elevator speech about what keeps you at the Quakers and what inspires you as this group or in this group?
I think I went to my first Quaker meeting out of guilt. I was a rebellious Methodist pastor's son, and I rejected Christianity at age 16. But but I had a friend in the East Lansing community. It was politics. Jim Anderson, um, professor at Michigan State, and he told me there was a friends meeting there during the course of our political work, and so I went and um, was captured fairly early by the wonderfulness of the silence. It wasn't just silence, it was something to experience. And every once in a while, somebody would say something, and at first I thought it was kind of, well, okay, that's obvious, something nice. But but it started to grow on me, and I thought there was something to the idea of trying to be good, and however that gets defined. And later on, one of the best books on Quakerism was written by a former Jesuit in the 1670s, and it's called named Barclay's Apology, and that is a long book where he goes through and proves that Quakers are true Christians, and gets deep into the theology. And I always joke so we've been there, done that, have the book, and don't need to no need to go there anymore. We're not. And he himself understands that. My favorite quote is that when I from that book is when I came into the silent assemblies of God's people, I found the good in me lifted up and the evil pushed down. And I think that's a great definition for spiritual practice. And if it works, it's been my experience, it works for me. And so that's why I stick with it.
Allison, you want to add anything to that? And I also encourage people to raise their hand if you want to ask a question to the group or to an individual.
I would love to add something. I see Kai's hand is raised. Am I seeing that correctly?
Yeah, it's a team effort here. So if you want to go first, Allison, and then
Okay.
Kai, maybe whatever, I'll
Okay.
let you guys self-regulate.
Yes. And so I'm sorry, remind me, you're asking for kind of how we entered into Quakerism.
Just if you want to add anything to what Paul shared.
Yeah, well, I'll probably say more later on too, but I think the thing that most drew me to Quakerism was similarly to how Barclay describes it, the way that the silence allowed for so much more depth. Believe it or not, I grew up conservative evangelical and made my way through different Christian traditions before coming to Quakerism, but the silence itself felt like taking a dip in in just a fresh ocean. In this, that when I was, this whole time up until then, I'd been in church settings that were, very structured, and lots of doctrine and theology coming forth from the pulpit and from the stage. And at Red Sea or Friends and other Quaker meetings you'll go to, what I noticed immediately was that I had become burnt out on kind of that structured way of doing spirituality, where Sunday mornings felt like I describe it as Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, 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 wah. No disrespect to anyone in particular who was, speaking, but overall, the silence brought me to a place that I hadn't been to. And I'd always been contemplative. I've always enjoyed silence, even before that. So it was kind of a natural migration, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Excellent. I'm kind of not an expert on Zoom, but you can also use the raising hand function that may keep people in order if you have something to say. But I think I'll let Kai go next. You have to unmute yourself, Kai. You're still muted. Okay, we can come back to Kai. I will ask him to unmute and can pop in a minute.
Hmm.
Does anybody else want to add something? Hey, Marty, thanks for joining us. So this is pretty much an open dialogue once we figure out the mechanics of Zoom. And so if you have anything, or if you want to just rest in the silence, this is an appropriate time to do that.
Just wondering if
There we go.
there,
Got it?
this is Deb. I just wonder if there's a synergy that goes on when you sit together in communion. I suppose it's like a circle or something. Do you recognize the spiritual energy with the group? I mean, is it something that accumulates as you get deeper and deeper into the silence? Are you aware of any of those types of things happening? Question.
Very, very much so. We have different names for it. Gathered meeting, covered meeting. I've had literal experience of that over the years. Before we had our own meeting house, we worshipped at All Saints Episcopal, and most of the time, and actually that went on for a biblical 40 years, I'm told, but oftentimes we met in the garden meeting room of that church, and I remember more than once needing to. Oh my goodness, my cat wants to add something, but the more than once stepping out to use the restroom or something, and literally they were a little bit bulky doors, but literally finding myself fighting my way back into the meeting, because there was that sense of a covered room, that something was going on. And we tend to sit in a four square circle, or a square, and it's also complicated by that we try to have at least one of our 10:30 meeting is on Zoom, so that people can participate that way. And so if you want to speak in person, you're supposed to go up and sit in front of the owl, and which is an irreverent aside. I was traveling recently in areas where Greeks had colonized in southern Italy, and reminded that a lot of the artwork there was the owl, which was a symbol of the goddess Athena, and so I always say that's our little pagan influence there.
I haven't heard that, Paul. I love that though. I love that about the owl.
Yeah.
Do you hide the owl? Because we use the same space at 4 o'clock on Sunday. I don't think I've ever seen an owl.
Yes, the owl is out. The owl is ours.
Is what?
It's central
ours.
to how we sit together. We're facing each other, so the owl is more central, because when someone wants to speak, we have them actually now come sit in a chair near the owl, so that
Is there actually an owl figurine? An owl figurine?
I'm sorry, it's a speaker.
Yeah.
That you can do Zoom meetings on. It picks up sound in our room.
Oh,
Yeah.
It looks like an owl. It's got two big eyes.
oh, I
It's
thought
called
you.
an owl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has big eyes. That's refreshing. That technology has not reached so far that everybody, I just assumed, but I'm glad not everybody knows what the owl is connected with Zoom.
I know.
And I will say, I'm sorry, just one more thing about Deborah's question. This kind of goes back to the Quakerism name, because when Quakers first began, Religious Society of Friends began meeting together hundreds of years ago, that nickname was given because people would often quake, sitting in silence. And so there was a bodily experience that came along with sitting together in this communal silence.
What does that look? What does that look like?
That, there could probably be a whole nother session on this, but our meeting and Friends General Conference, the conference we belong to, I think everyone has different experiences, but in general, the quaking is not a central feature. The actual bodily quaking is not really a central feature to worship. There's a whole history behind that. But
well, the reason I ask is that we're in the same space at 4:00.
Yes.
And for those of us, many of us can feel the energy when we walk in, and it doesn't take me very long to start moving around. And so that's what I wondered what quaking was, because sometimes I can't, I'm back and forth and I rock. And is that what quaking is?
My experience.
Maybe it's my autism. I don't know.
Okay, no, my experience. I think it's different for everybody. It is not. It is not over in the what, and I don't mean disrespect to this. It's not over in the holy roller tradition where people are the Pentecostalist Christian tradition where people are really falling down in the aisles and everything.
I understand. I understand.
And for me, the time it often is a sign that really what's on your mind is meant to be shared. And for me, it's kind of an agitation. Geez, do I really don't want to stand up and go to the owl. There is often some reluctance involved with it. So it's more of a fidgeting effect, but I think everybody experiences it differently. We discuss. It's kind of a tied to deciding when you speak in meeting, and you're really supposed to do some spiritual discernment before you just jump up and talk about the latest the latest disturbing news or something. And in fact, there are Quaker meetings that go through periods of having what we call derisively, we call it as popcorn meetings, where somebody is always popping up to say something. And my experience is that is not particularly helpful to being centered. And Red Cedar has some amount of pride. Always pride goes before a fall, but Red Cedar friends have some tradition of saying, no, we're not a popcorn meeting, and we do not. We expect plenty of space to be left between messages, and it just it's out of respect and letting things happen. We try to encourage people not to comment on other messages, not to say me too or I disagree, or it really isn't that the meeting for worship is not a place for dialogue. It's a place for listening, and it is amazing the many times I've experienced that there may be only 2 or 3 messages, but they somehow string together in my mind to create a whole a sermon, if you will, a whole theme that I can reflect on further. And again, it's very very powerful. And we do have times where we try to keep the meeting to an hour, but there are meetings that won't rise, as the saying goes. And it seems to me we have those occasionally where the clerk goes to shake hands and nobody's paying attention, and because it's still deep, and but anyway, Allison, I may have gone on too long there.
No, I think
Could I ask
think
a
Kai
question?
did Kai ask his question yet? He was kind of the first
No,
one.
right.
Well, I do have my question, but I have another question too. So the first one was is the book that you talked about, Paul, is that available there at the building?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so. The Barclays apology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the second question I have is, how does it get going when everybody sits at 10:30?
I was going to actually comment on that, Paul. Maybe
Okay.
that how
Good.
we begin and end meetings is a little different. Meeting for worship begins as soon as the first person comes into meeting for worship to sit down in silence. That's when it begins.
Mhm.
So whoever follows coming in after comes in silently as much as possible. We, to be clear, we make room for like noise, not, it's not like if your feet are shuffling or, you have to cough, like we're very gracious about background noises. It's not about the absence of noise, silence. So I will say that first. So the first person who comes into meeting for worship is the one who begins it. And as Paul mentioned towards the end, the clerk, the person who's kind of presiding over that meeting for worship, will eventually shake the hand of the person on either side of them to initiate, okay, meeting for worship we're transitioning now to, our communal kind of announcements and sharing with each other outside of that designated meeting for worship. Does that make sense?
Could I ask something?
Yeah.
Could I ask a question?
Go for it.
Sure.
Okay. Historically, weren't the Quakers instrumental, like with the Underground Railroad, abolition of slavery, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, there's a long history of social justice involvement. There's a lot of good history there. Yes, you have heard that correctly. There's also right now, Quakers as a whole are working through the legacy, the not so great legacy of having been part of the Native American boarding school systems.
Oh,
So there's a lot of reconciling
yeah.
with that history too. So both and here. I don't know, Paul, if you have anything you wanted to add to that.
Well, we're not saints. I mean, we got started in mid 1600s England because it was a time of great spiritual ferment and revolution in England. That's the one time they overthrew their monarchy and beheaded King Charles I and replaced him with the Presbyterian Oliver Cromwell, who was every bit as vicious and evil as a king, and threw Quakers in jail routinely. And so probably the first thing Quakers did for social justice was stand up and say, no, we're not going to belong to a state church, and we are not going to be bullied by a state church. And in fact, they found that you could that at least the English government could not succeed in putting down the Quakers and some of these other Reform Protestant movements, and so at one point they in the late 1600s they passed the Acts of Toleration, and no longer would you be arrested for being at a Quaker meeting, which of course started the Quaker Quietist period, where the group went into serious decline and and was developed some pretty rigid bad habits in the 1700s, and had a century-long dialogue, albeit ahead of other people, leading to Quaker position against human slavery. But even there, the abolitionism was not unanimous, and involved a lot of side issues. So it's like any history; it's fascinating. But
Is there anyone who had a statement or a question that hasn't had a chance to speak yet? Marty?
Okay, so yeah, I'm a little confused. So the Quakers came about during the Protestant Reformation, I presume.
yes,
And you said you have a theology. You said the meetings are basically you come in. It sounds like you come in and then you meditate for how long?
roughly an hour.
And then you have a social time.
Yes.
Okay. So is there a theology behind all of this?
Great question. Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't know. It's your turn.
Well, I'll go if you want me to. Right. Paul has been a Quaker for many more years than I have, and I will say, we all of us Quakers come from it with different backgrounds, and some are birthright Quakers, born into Quaker families and communities. Paul and I are, neither of us are that, but Paul's a wealth of knowledge. I wish I could sit with you for hours, Paul, and just hear what you have to say. But but to summarize, Marty, kind of your question, as far as at least with Friends General Conference, and now there's as with any group, there's a variety, right? So there are programmed meetings that have pastors and congregations, and maybe they'll do some hymn singing and preaching or scripture, those kinds of things, more structured. But Red Cedar Friends is part of Friends General Conference, which is unprogrammed meetings, which is less structure. There is a structure there still, but it's really centered on there's 5 values, and that's like a automatic thing. I think there's 5 values that we center on, and they're not necessarily doctrines, though maybe doctrines can inform some of that, but the 5 values, and I'll list them off. There is a helpful acronym for it, and it's called SPICE. So I'll try to name them in order so that you get that.
SPICE?
SPICE, yes.
my gosh.
SPICE, yes. So, and help me out, Paul, if I'm...
Well, there's sometimes the S on the end, spices.
Right, sometimes it's spices.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we'll go with SPICE. Let's keep it simple today.
Right.
Well, the first value, the first testimonies are what we call them, but it's a set of values we center around. The first one, S, is simplicity. That's a big one. Living simply, not just in one aspect, but in all aspects, spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally. Simplicity. Can have a whole nother session on just that. So simplicity. Peace is the P. We are a peace oriented community, and we can maybe elaborate a little bit more on what that means. C is community. Community is very important to us. We make decisions as a community. We don't have one person or a board of people making decisions. It's a a group effort. And there's community in a lot of other ways too, but that's an example of one of the ways we try to live out that value. SPI, okay. Sorry, I missed the I.
Yeah, I thought I said, well, I can't spell. I wasn't quite sure. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm messing this up. S, listen. P is for peace.
Yeah.
I, excuse me, is for integrity. That's a value. We try to be truth tellers and not be deceitful in any way. To speak plainly, to you know, maybe not speak in a vague or flowery way, you know, to just say what we mean. That's one example of how we utilize integrity. And then C, as I said, is community. And then E is for equality. And that, you know, they're all interrelated in so many ways, but equality is another testimony. And then at times, in certain ways or circles, there's another S on the end, spices, and that S at the end was stewardship. Is that right, Paul? Did I get that right?
Well, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, stewardship. You know, as far as how we handle what we've been given. So not necessarily just financially. So those are the spices.
I'm laughing because I work at a place where the spices mean something else. Smile,
yeah.
Oh,
It's a helpful way to remember.
If I can just butt in with a little more history,
Please do.
The founder of the Quakers rejected creeds. He had done his research and was convinced that the Christian church had been off the rails since Constantine, Emperor Constantine, took it over in the 300s AD and made it the official state religion of the Roman Empire. And he regarded all the church councils and every church proceeding after that as being illegitimate, and he claimed that his job was to preach primitive Christianity revived. And so traditionally, Friends have rejected formal creeds that everybody has to, even though they come out of the Christian tradition. We are not willing to do formal creeds. One branch of Quakers adopted something in the 1880s called the Richmond. It's Richmond, Indiana. The Richmond Declaration, that kind of smells and talks and quacks like a creed, although they claim it's not. But there is so much division and fighting over the theology that I think the early Quakers were right in seeing that as a total spiritual dead end. And you know, when you go back and listen to some of the arguments, it just is. I mean, I love to laugh. My father, the Methodist minister, was still into this dispute between the Catholics and the Protestants over transubstantiation. You know, whether when you're doing communion, what is the nature of that bread and wine? And the Catholics always say it literally becomes the body of Christ and the blood of Christ, and the Protestants say, well, what is this? Why wasn't the death of Jesus on the cross good enough the first time? Why is it happening each time? And so my father, whenever he did the Methodist communion service, would say the Methodist language is the blood and body of Christ once offered for the forgiveness of sin, and he would pound out that, call out that once offered, and so I mean, that's not to say you can't get spiritual benefit out of participating in a Christian communion service, but Quakers don't go there. We do not have any of the sacraments, and that is why mystics of all types have been able to come. And I do not consider myself a Christian. I think the Christian Bible is what I know, and it's a huge resource for spiritual growth and conversation. But it is not required that you believe in any specific set of beliefs. I think the whole issue is what is the group experiencing, and that's why I like it.
Question.
Kai?
Yeah. So is it New Testament stuff? Is that what it's about? The Bible?
Oh no, it's the whole Bible. I read the Old and the New Testament. That's what the early Quakers were reading.
Okay.
But
And it was all Jewish. It was all Jewish, the Old Testament.
yeah, right.
I think something that drew me to Quakerism is not that, even Paul and I, we're individuals with, our unique perspectives. There's so much variety, even among Red Cedar Friends meeting, just in our meeting. We have friends who would say, I am a Christian. And we have friends like Paul and such as myself who, Paul says, I'm not a Christian. I would say I was raised Christian. And so that's kind of like a framework I'm really familiar with. But I think I live outside of those boundary lines so often. And I've found so much life outside of, having that as my only label. So it's we all come from it, all approach it differently, and I think that's the beauty of what we do, because we even have, we have at Friends General Conference every year, there is always as far as I know, a breakout session for non-theist Quakers. So we have a lot of Quakers who believe in God, and we have and in Quakerism, often God is referred to as inner light, or inner teacher, sometimes inner Christ. That might be more appropriate for someone who says I'm a Christian and a Quaker. Maybe it's inner Christ. But there's different ways of even talking about spirit. Spirit is a common way to refer to divine source. However, as I mentioned, there are non-theist Quakers too, and when I've gone to Friends General Conference, either virtually or in person, I always go to the non-theist Friends workshop because anyone's welcome, and there's just a beautiful dialogue, a beautiful way to embrace the fact that some Quakers have found the spice is really valuable in their lives and in the way that they navigate this community, but it may not be within the framework of a higher power or of a Christian framework. So, and
Thanks, you guys. I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
I appreciate. Thank you very much for your time today. I'm going to hit the hay. So
thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
you bet. Thank you.
I'm really curious. You mentioned the popcorn things can result to popcorn. That seems like one of the challenges we've had with the dialogue is that conversation is moving so fast and there's rarely a pause to reflect on what has been said. How do you try and stay away from the popcorn if that's one of your goals?
Hmm. Good question.
Am I assuming making the right assumptions here, or do you like the popcorn?
No,
No, no,
no.
no. We try to bookend people's sharing their messages. We try to bookend that in silence. It's not has to be 60 seconds. It's not rigid like that. It's more just and I've heard it described where you kind of feel the desire to move on from that period of silence kind of when you feel maybe an inner shift, or you feel a little bit more settled in yourself. Okay, now I feel like now maybe I can speak from a place of being led by spirit, or however that's framed. So and we talk about it a lot, and we have materials, for newcomers to kind of get familiar with how we approach things. And so there's kind of an understanding among members who've been coming for a long time. There's an understanding that after someone speaks, you kind of let it settle in a little bit. And I hear, is that kind of what you were hoping for today, Leroy? Because we could do that format, where after people, say something, we have a
That's
little bit of
I
silence.
just I just love hearing about that because I
Oh,
like a less
yeah,
fast-paced where people are sort of deeply reflecting on what's been said
yeah,
and
yeah. And I
and
think because you call this a dialogue, where there's a lot of back and forth, and that's beautiful too. And we have that too. We have meeting for business, where we do have sessions where, we have silence for a little bit, but there is dialogue there too. We have, our social gatherings after meeting. We have lots of ways we get together where it's back and forth. But meeting for worship specifically is that set apart kind of sacred time where it's not a back and forth. It's a communal listening, if that makes sense.
We do have humans. All human organizations are going to have politics. We have committees. We have a tradition, which I think we've gotten away from some of the abuses of it. But certainly the early Quakers had people that they called elders, who were looked up to as spiritual leaders, and who would let you know, especially after repeated times, that you are not being helpful, and the and in fact, in our meeting we have had two or three people who have come simply to proselytize for their version of spirituality, and who in that sense disrupt the meeting. And we don't throw them out, but they are eldered, and if they persist, there have been one or two asked to leave, and not be part of our meeting, because if you're there every week to be Johnny One Note, about something that you think we are doing wrong, not talking about your own experience, then we're going to gently resist that.
gotcha. Thank you. Anybody else, especially if you haven't had a chance to speak yet or had a question lurking in your brain, please unmute yourself. Marty?
Oh, I just put a little note in the chat, just education about the difference between the different religions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right. It's the apostolic ones that say that. Lutherans also.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, I tried very hard as a teenager. We had the altar calls, and I remember, my favorite one. I was 12 years old, and we were at a church camp, and on Lake Huron, and it was Friday night, the end of the week, and we'd had a great week, and I was 12 years old. I kind of had one of my first crushes there, and so we have this communion service, closing worship of the weekend camp, and there's a thunderstorm over Lake Huron, and it's all set to all set, just the right central casting to have a wonderful religious conversion experience, and so I went to the altar, and I was deeply moved, and I thought it was wonderful. And within 2 days, it was completely worn off, and it had no bearing on it had no bearing on my life, and I just, the way I phrase it now, I just do not experience a personal God or a personal Jesus, and in that sense, I'm a non-theist friend, but I feel profoundly led and moved, and all these things that would imply a person out there, but I just don't experience it that way. And I think that's a key thing that Quakers offer, is that you listen to your own experience and try to relate it to that of other people. We've spent some time in our meeting learning about the concept of and it's taught to us by one of our a resource person who is very, very Christian, and she talks about listening in tongues, and it refers to the time in the Bible in Acts where the Holy Spirit came down on the apostles and made everybody speak in tongues. They were different languages, but they all understood each other, that this wonderful mass mystical thing was happening to them. And so we say, let's listen in tongues. Let's understand that even though I have never experienced it that way, you are, and there's some kind of commonality there that we can share. So that's why I think we have both Christians and non-Christians in Quakers.
Great. We have about 10 more minutes. We can be in silence, or we can just, if you have something that you are moved to share, please feel free. Bill or Sue?
Yeah. Well, I just thought that I would say it's all been very interesting, hearing about the friends, and it's occurred to me that Sue and I have been more students of the Course in Miracles than anything. And
That with Marianne Williamson?
yeah, she's associated with that, and
Right.
there's really this your group sounds very interesting in a lot of ways, and there's really nothing that in it that conflicts with anything that we've learned in the course, or any sort of things we have. And I have to say, at least my own personal inclination is, it might be interesting to come by and see about being a part of a meeting at some point.
Yeah, we
So,
love having visitors. Yeah, please come check us out if you feel led to do that. We'd love to have you.
what time is the meeting? What's the date and
Good
time?
question. Yeah, Sunday mornings at 10:30 is our main meeting for worship. That's where most friends are attending. There is a 9 a.m. worship that's just in person, not on Zoom, in our meeting house. But yeah, if you go on our website or find us on Facebook, there's more information too about all of the other things that we do as well.
Oh, okay.
Can you just repeat that website again?
Oh, it's like redcedarfriends.org. Is that, am I getting that right? I hope I am. Let me double check.
You, you sent it to us, Leroy.
Yep,
I just want to, for the,
redcedarfriends.org.
Yeah.
We can put that in the chat, maybe. Let me do that. redcedarfriends.org.
thank you.
There we go.
This will be probably replayed by people who didn't get that message, so that would be
Oh,
helpful.
okay. All right.
Great. Let me just say, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Marty.
I'm trying to understand. So basically, it doesn't matter what your theology is. You can become a member of the Quakers because it's primarily meditation and unity.
It's experience.
Oh,
Yeah, and there is, if you're regularly attending Red Cedar Friends, you're considered a member. There's a way you can formalize your membership by becoming a recorded member, and that, there's a little process to that, where you're meeting with a group of people for a little bit, and then you kind of share whatever you want to share, with meeting, and then meeting approves, you becoming a recorded member. But so we're not, it's not like this in or out group. We love visitors, we love people. Sometimes people are in our community for a little bit and then they go somewhere else, or people who used to attend Red Cedar Friends years ago come back years later and become part of the community again. So we're kind of a fluid group, but it's open and affirming. We're very welcoming to anyone. You don't have to believe a certain thing, as you're saying, Marty. But there are, and here's the thing: like human beings in general have rituals, So religion is like a human thing. So it's not that we don't have certain expectations or regular practices that we do or understandings of things. But I would say it's more fluid, more flexible, because it's centered around, as long as those values, the spices, are kind of the fabric of how we operate as a community and how people enter into it. It's a beautiful thing. But as Paul said, we've got, sometimes people come in with an agenda that's not necessarily cohesive to kind of how we gather. And so sometimes we have to really work with people to kind of let them know, like, hey, you can believe and think what you want, but we have a certain way of coming together in community that's kind of a mutual respect for each other and for where we come from. Deborah.
Thank you. You've mentioned a couple times, both you and Paul, that you feel when you share, when you're motivated to share or have the incentive to share. I'm curious about the sharing aspect. It comes to you like a divine message or something like that, or from your higher self or your higher consciousness, that you then are getting the inclination to share with the group. Is that what you mean when you say share? It surfaces out of the silence, and you would hear the message, and then you give the message. Is that what you're
some
referring
would
to?
maybe describe it that way. I think part of Quaker meeting for worship and the silence, and correct me, Paul, if I need to be here, but part of it is that you might be experiencing something real deep, real emotional, or powerful in and of yourself in meeting for worship. But there's another layer to that where, as Paul mentioned, discernment comes into play. And you kind of have to discern. That's the general idea is that you discern, is what I'm experiencing and hearing or knowing within myself, is this for everyone else too? Or is it just for me? Because sometimes it might be just for you. And it might be something that's maybe not that part of that communal. So and it's hard. It's not black and white process by any means, but I think it's just the more you do it, the more you kind of get a sense
Yeah.
for this is a communal thing that's going on
Okay.
here, not just
So you probably encourage that folks do this in their own home space too. The meditation and the
silence.
practice of being quiet and
Yeah,
getting those
listening.
messages.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of being part of a Quaker meeting is the rest of the time, the rest of the week, you're doing some of that, on your own too and practicing that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Leroy, I wanted to just say, for a time, I believe your late mother was a recorded member of Red Cedar Friends, and I remember she was very literally colorful because she always wore this necklace of hundreds of folded cranes, and was always doing more origami during silent meetings, and it's just a fond memory.
Oh, that's really sweet. Thank you for sharing.
I didn't know that about your mother, Leroy. That's neat.
We still have thousands of them in my house here. If anybody wants some origami, we have about 3 more minutes. Any parting comments or questions that people haven't had a chance to share? Thank you very much for that, Paul. Well, I'm going to teach you all how to fold an origami peas crane, if you don't mind. No, I'm just kidding. I've resisted learning that. I've resisted learning how to do that, so I'm not sure. I'm sure someone else knows it.
Right.
Well, the bells are chiming. That must mean it's time. This is
Westminster chimes on my grandfather clock.
What a great segue. Thank you all for being here. If you have suggestions for future speakers or topics, please forward them along and we'll try and get them on the second Sunday? Or we might also just do something online and share that. It could be shared or recorded at any time. This is an emerging dialogue, and thanks for being a part of it. If you have any comments or suggestions for next time, please forward them along. Any other parting comments?
I just want to thank you, Leroy, for having Paul and I on to do this. It's been a pleasure. I was really looking forward to it, and I'm so glad that you all joined us today. Thank you, everyone else, too, for sharing with us.
Likewise.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're a great team.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Leroy, and everybody else.
Thank you, Bill and Sue.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
You're welcome. Bye. Do you need anything else from me, Leroy?
Tell me how to shut this thing down and I'll be able to sit down.
I know how to leave.
That was really great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes.